Already there. So, yeah, not really sure what happened there. Right, so we're going to be on for about half an hour. We're just going to chat about movies, Ahsoka, and what's happening in Hollywood. Now, a lot of you might not realise this, but the actress Lizzo is being sued by some of her dancers. And it's one of those stories where I'm not sure whether or not I believe it 100% what happened, but they're alleging certain things. They were forced to do certain things while they were out on tour with Lizzo. Now, there's also a little bit of can I get away with this on TikTok? But they're discussing about the size of. She's allegedly had a go at these dancers because of their size, and let's face it, she's not exactly a Twiggy, is she? So they've launched this they've launched this case against her. They're going for discrimination, a lot of sexual harassment in the workplace, and all kinds of stuff like that. And she's now launched a counter suit against them. So she's putting in her defence that they were just as bad. But it's quite interesting when you look at this. Now, Lizzo, whose real name is Melissa Vivian Jefferson, she held an after party in an Amsterdam nightclub, and we know the sort of things that happen in Amsterdam, so I won't go into too much detail there. And what the dancers are alleging is that they were there in this club and they were feeling very uncomfortable being asked to do some stuff they didn't want to do. So they've launched this suit against her. Now, the lawyer for Lizzo on Wednesday shared photos of the singer and the dancers from a different event. And what she's saying is, well, when we went to Paris, we was in a different town, different city, doing similar sort of stuff. Nobody really complained about it. Why are they complaining about it now? Just because we went to Amsterdam? Good question. But again, this all comes down to consent and whether or not people are consenting to what is going on around them. And I think that's going to be the key factor into this lawsuit is it's going to focus on consent. And and so it should. That's one of the big stories that's been happening in the world of show business. Obviously, we have the writers' strike. Now, has anybody noticed that the writers are on strike? I haven't. You've got to ask the question here: what is the ultimate aim of the studios introducing AI, and what they want to, and what do the writers want to achieve? The writers. I can fully side with because they are asking some genuine questions. Because we don't know what these viewing figures are on the streaming services. Netflix, for example, could have a show that only gets 100,000 views and deem it the number one show on Netflix. But we wouldn't know that. We don't know what the metrics are. And Amazon, likewise, did try and say that the Rings of Power was its biggest and most successful show on the platform. But again, they won't release those figures. Now, this is what the actors and what the writers are asking for is to be paid for a percentage of the viewership of these shows. Now, that would mean Amazon, Netflix, Apple, what are the others? You've got NBC, Paramount. They would all have to release those figures and let people know who is actually watching their shows compared to the amount of subscribers that they have. And I can understand why they wouldn't want to do that, because I honestly don't feel that these shows that are on the streaming services are generating that much of an audience unless you've got something like Stranger Things. Stranger Things, I think, is one of the it's the exception to the rule, because that has got a cult following, and I can see that being a very popular show if that was put onto a terrestrial streaming terrestrial streaming, like here in the UK, BBC or ITV. I can see it doing really, really well because of the way that it's made, the storytelling, the cast. They've all got that spot on. Compare that with some of the other stuff that Amazon put out, and yeah, they're throwing out an awful lot of content because that's what we demand as members, as people that subscribe to the channel. We want content, we want to be entertained, but not a lot of it is good entertainment. There are the exceptions, and I think this is where the writers have a point. let us know the figures. Let them know how good or how well received their work is, and then they can justifiably, theoretically, ask for more money. But I think they're going to be very unpleasantly surprised. They're going to have a few shocks if they did release those figures, because I don't think the content is reaching the audience that they expect it to be. This is the thing that when Disney bought Star Wars, the product that they bought with George Lucas in charge is totally different to the product that they are selling, and that's quite obvious with the fact that most of the TV shows on there have totally bombed, according to Nielsen. Now, Nielsen is the website that can, for some reason, somehow, don't know, magic maybe, they get an idea of what the viewing numbers are for these shows that are on the streaming platforms. And obviously, if you want to rank on Nielsen, then you have to have so many minutes. It's so many minutes watched. Now, what that means is you can release a show of half an hour length this week, and that could get, say, 100, 200,000 minutes watched because it's been quite popular. Then you could have another show that has got 4 episodes released at the same time, and all those minutes add up. So it kind of skews the figures, because if you have the 4 episodes, then the amount of minutes that the Nielsen records as being watched is obviously going to be a lot more than a show that only has 1 episode on available to watch. Now, this is why I think they've launched both episodes, episode 1 and 2 of the Ahsoka show, so that they can get a better Nielsen figure and rank higher with the show, so that Disney can then come out and say, hey, this is a really popular and successful show. It's wherever it is on the Nielsen chart. So there is a lot of shenanigans that goes on with the streaming services and the actors and the actresses and the pay. So the question is really, if they went down the AI route, and that is the fear that they're going to have computers writing these shows, books and pop culture, would we actually notice the difference? Because how many new shows on these streaming platforms are actually unique? How many of them stand out? How many of them have characters that you don't see in all the other shows? Because the shows that I've watched, and I do go through and I'll try and keep up to date with the ones that are obviously popular and the recent ones, they all have the same themes. The women can do no wrong. They're all really woman boss. They can do everything, and they're fantastic. And the guys portrayed as being not as clever, not as bright, and they don't have the intelligent ideas. And we can take the first episode of Ahsoka as an example of that, because if you're in space and you have a ship that you don't know what it is, and you believe that the Jedi are practically extinct and they're using Jedi codes, then would you not, as a captain, put the safety of your vessel first and say, well, okay, we want more information, or stay where you are, particularly if you're carrying a prisoner. You're not just going to say, well, let's call their bluff and let them on board the ship. I wouldn't. I would be calling their bluff by saying, okay, if that's what you think you are, give me more information, give me more detail, or I'm just going to open fire on you, because we don't know really who you are, and I want to protect the cargo that I have and the ship. But no, they don't do that. So they allow the ship on board, and I hope I'm not spoiling Ahsoka for people that are watching or listening. So they allow the ship on board. Then what? Half a dozen soldiers against potential Jedi, or somebody that could be potentially a Force wielder. Again, it doesn't really make much sense from a strategic point of view. And that is so typical. Look at how Obi-Wan Kenobi was the second-class citizen in his own show. And there's a classic scene in the Obi-Wan series where he has Leia, and there's a barrier going across the road, and you have the barrier. It's between, I think it's between a big rock or a mountainside and a building, and there's a big enough gap to get a bus through on either side. but he has to blast the barrier in order to deactivate it so that they can pass. It's like, well, really? Did you have to do that? And then they're on foot. So it's not like they had to destroy the barrier to get through and carry on in the vehicle. No, they just destroy it and walk through. The other thing with the Obi-Wan series was how the adults were able to be outrun and outwitted by effectively a 10-year-old Princess Leia. So again, not particularly believable. I know children can run. I've seen plenty of kids running around like a shopping centre where they've got away from their parents, but only for so long. They're not totally outrun. Yep, I did use Mr. Sheen. Thank you, Kurt. Yep. And that is just like the whole thing of the shows that, particularly on Disney Plus, that they're streaming and putting out. In the meantime, you have shows like The Expanse, which I thoroughly enjoy. It's a real clever sci-fi, and it's kind of got a little bit of real world physics built in there as well, which makes it a little bit more believable. But the characters are believable. The characters act as you would expect, and they don't change the rules, but i.e. the law of the world, in episodes or in seasons. And the Expanse is actually based on the book series, and there's 9 books in the entire series, and they stopped at around about book 5, I think. There is a gap of about 20 years from book 5 to book 6, so though they're not making The Expanse at the moment, and there is heavy rumours that they are going to start making the show again, then there is that chance that they can carry on, pick up the series, and it won't have too much of an effect with the actors who would have aged, because there is that gap in the book series. What I liked about The Expanse, now for me, it was kind of like Game of Thrones in space. And when I say that, I don't mean that there's all sorts of people fighting over an iron throne and dragons. What I mean by that is they had this undercurrent. You had the proto molecule, which had an adverse effect on anything organic. It could change it and strengthen it. So they built up in the background a premise of like the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, and it was an underlining theme in the series, which it did expand on, and this protomolecule did all sorts of various things, which was really cool. And I think they utilised it pretty well, unlike Game of Thrones, which went south really from season 7 onwards, 7 and 8. And I think that's because with Game of Thrones, they run out of the source material. J.R.R. Martin hasn't written a book, or what in the series of Game of Thrones, is it the Song of Ice and Fire? He hasn't written the next book. There's been like a 10-year gap between books, and still waiting. We're still waiting for that. Is it the 7th book, 6th or 7th book? Which is a shame, really, because I can see the Song of Ice and Fire being a series that never gets completed. I can honestly see J.R.R. Martin passing away before he actually completes that story, which is a shame, because it has got such a phenomenal following, and a very loyal following, to be honest. But yeah, like many others, I haven't read the books. I've watched Game of Thrones, so I've got that is my introduction. That's my knowledge of the world and the lore, and it's a shame that he won't finish off the series so that the people that love the books and the story can actually have a conclusion. So yeah, with Ahsoka, just go back to that. I think they released the 2 episodes at the same time to try and boost the viewing figures. I found it very slow, and not a lot really happened in the first 20 minutes. There's not a lot of dialogue. We see Ahsoka and Sabine, but the story itself is kind of like predictable. I am very careful and cautious with what they're going to do with Ezra and Thrawn, because it now looks like they're going to go into a whole new galaxy. So imagine a little blue screen that would be in a galaxy that was far, far away. All right. Sorry, I didn't see it going. We really look alike. Do we? Do you think so? Possibly. We could. I suppose there's a little bit of similarity there. So if I had long hair and glasses, maybe. So I'm just going by your profile picture, by the way. So, yeah. What are you looking for, Liz? There you go. Got one there. Yeah. So yeah, this TikTok live is also being streamed live on YouTube as well. And so if anybody's interested, I have a YouTube channel, Sci-Fi Fans, and a weekly podcast. So what I'm trying to do is combine the lives that I do here on TikTok with YouTube. No, I'm just going to stay with me for now. What time is it? I'm going to be on for about another 10 minutes, and then I'll give myself a cup of tea and get ready for bed, because I'm an old boy and I've got work in the morning. So, yeah, I think I'm going to give Ahsoka time, but the first impression is kind of like, where's all the men? There's no male heroes in Ahsoka at the moment, except for the villain. The villain is obviously a male with a female apprentice, and again, this seems to be very typical of modern filmmaking stuff. Is girl boss, girl boss, girl boss. So yeah, I'm waiting for the male heroes to come along in Ahsoka, which I don't think I'm going to get. I'm very disappointed, but I'm going to give it a go. I gave up on. What did I didn't watch Hawkeye because I kind of gave up on Marvel. We started to watch She-Hulk, but again, just lost interest because I've seen everything that they're putting out. We've all seen before. And there's none of that originality. Would we get that with AI? Maybe. So let's have a look then at the box office. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we want the UK, because I'm based in the UK. Movie 10. Right. So, Paul. Barbie is number 1. Oppenheimer is still number 2, and Blue Beetle is number 3. So let's view the 7 Moon Rows. UK cinema box office, and these are the stats so far. So Barbie this last week grossed just over £2.5 million. Total gross is £84.8 million. Now I'm guessing that's in the UK. Oppenheimer is quite a close second actually, with £2.04 million pounds. So it's about 500,000 short. 50 million in total. Blue Beetle, which came out recently, is in at number 3 with £1.2 million, and obviously that's its total gross at the moment because it only came out recently. The Meg 2, The Trench, has come in at number 4 with £972,000, so just under £1 million. Hi Jerry, cheers for joining. Just running through the box office here in the UK. Strays in at number 5. Now, so far, out of the top 5 films in the UK, I would like to go and see The Meg, despite the missus not being impressed. I just think it's going to be one of those where you just put your brain in a jar, watch it, be entertained, and not worry about it. And Strays. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has come in at number 6 with just under £500,000. Haunted Mansion isn't too far behind. Hi, no one knows. Didn't you join last week? Mission Impossible at number 8, Elemental number 9, and Gran Turismo number 10. And it says Gran Turismo based on a true story, so I will be delving into that a little bit more at a later date. We have it was an old multi-screen cinema near where I live, and it got renovated quite recently, just before COVID. They've called it the Odyssey, and they show films from past, present, and future. And what they're going to be showing in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to try and get some tickets for, because they're going to be showing the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, and I think they're going to be showing all of the Lord of the Rings films in sequence. And this is the good thing. They're going to be doing the extended edition, and I would pay good money to see that. Another one that they're going to do is Lethal Weapon. So I'm going to make sure I can get a time off work and go and see those two on the big screen. When the original Lord of the Rings films came out, I've seen all of them, but only in the theatrical cut in local cinema at the time. I wasn't quite old enough to go and see Lethal Weapon, but I will be. Hopefully, I'm going to try and get some tickets for that. Thank you, Jeffrey. I'd just rather stay just me at the moment. Okay, but thank you for the invite anyway. And so that's the top 10 in the UK. Let's see what's going on in America. Mark. Okay, Mark. UK cinema. Let's see what's going on. Will it? Yeah. So just have a look. So US. Yeah, I'm only going to be on for about another 10 minutes. US movie top 10. So what we've got in there? Blue Beetles top. That's a bit different, isn't it? So what we've got then? US box office. Blue Beetle is top with 25 million. Total gross over worldwide so far is 34 million. Barbie, total gross is 21 million. That's just in the last week. This is in America. Total gross is 578, not 57. 578 million. Oppenheimer with 291 million. Turtles 92 million. Strays with 11 million. Meg 2, 69 million. What was the budget on Meg 2? See if I can find that out. I don't know why, but I just really enjoyed the first Meg film, and I am pleased that they've done a sequel. It's not necessarily a film that deserved the sequel, but then, let's face it, Jaws isn't either one of those films that probably deserved. It was good enough that should have been left as a standalone film. Kind of went downhill afterwards. But when they said that they're going to make a sequel to Meg, I was really excited for that because I just liked it. So let's see if we can find out a little bit more info about Meg 2, shall we? Let's see what we've got. Meg 2 The Trench. Right. So it was titled Shark 2. So it's called Meg 2 The Trench, but in some countries they've called it Shark 2. And it was made box office. So the budget for Meg was $139 million, and at the moment it's looking pretty good because it made $320 million. So chances are it's actually broken even and might actually start making a little bit of profit. I hope so, because I enjoyed the first one. I will go and try and see this one before it disappears, and then it'll be available on Sky Cinema in the UK. Has a runtime of 116 minutes, and it's been released in China, which is interesting because the Chinese are very particular about what films they actually release in the state. And we've been joined by Andy. Hey, you can say that? Right. If Angry Cat, if Grumpy Cat hadn't already been taken, that would be his name, but as it has, I call him Angry Cat, because he always looks cross. Even when he's happy, he looks cross. And he's going to run off. So it was released from June the 9th, or was released on June 9th in the US, and it's still going quite strong. Stars Jason Statham, pretty cool. Wu Jing, Paige Kennedy, Sergio Piers Mencha, Skylar Samuels. Probably butchered some of those names. That's typical. So the plot: 5 years after the events of the first film, Jason Taylor has been involved in fighting environmental crimes, while also helping Manor One in exploring a further deep part of the Mariana Trench, where the Megalodon has been found. Following the death of Suyin Zhang, Taylor has been raising her teenage daughter, Mei Ling, alongside her uncle, Sinyo's brother. Taylor and Jim Ning lead routine submarine exploration in the trench, with Mei Ling stowing away to see the trench for the first time. There's always going to be a stowaway, isn't there? You have this type of film. Guarantee one of the little kids is going to be a stowaway on there. And as I say, I would like to go and see that at the cinema on there. Other news as well, one of my favourite franchises, there's 2 films coming out, and that is in the Godzilla franchise. We've got Godzilla -1, and then there is another Godzilla vs. Kong in the pipe works, but it's not going to be... I think the antagonist in Godzilla vs. Kong 2 is going to be another type of gorilla. I believe it's going to be based on some sort of orangutan. Intriguing, and pretty pleased that they've been able to release a film. They're going to release one film after another, and I think Godzilla -1 is a Toho Studios, and Toho Studios still owns all the rights necessary for the Godzilla films. That's right, Mojo. I'm just saying, flying solo today. No, thank you for the offer. I'm going to be going shortly anyway, another 5 minutes or so. So Toho Studios own the rights for Godzilla, and they've kind of taken it back to basics with their own film. Now, the deal that they have with Warner Brothers and New Line, I think it is that they can make their own Godzilla films, and obviously Toho will get a share of the profits, but Toho can still make their own films, and what they have to do is make them or release them in different years. So Toho can release their films this year, then Warner Brothers can release their films next year. This could either be a good thing or a bad thing with regards to the franchise, because you could have a situation where there's a Godzilla film every single year. Would that work though? I don't think it would. I think once they start releasing Godzilla films year on year, then people are going to get bored of the story, because there are only so many Godzilla films that you can make. How many times can a giant lizard creature come along and save planet Earth from other lizard creatures, or moths, or bats? So there is a limitation, and I would like to think that Toho Studios will know when to stop and give it a rest. This is something that I think Marvel kind of fell into that trap, because Marvel was the golden goose of Hollywood. Everything that they touched turned to gold. With the very rare exception, I think Miss Marvel was one of those exceptions. Now, the film itself done particularly well, but it was sandwiched in between the end of the franchise. Oh, thank you. Just being asked if I'm okay. I'm fine, thank you. No one has asked me, but yeah. No, I'm good. I'm back to work tomorrow. Had today off. Working the weekend, then I've got a few days off next week, so I can concentrate on some content on TikTok and YouTube and podcast. Speaking of which, this week's podcast will be going out on Monday once I've done the editing, and it's all about Harry Potter. So there you go. More videos are coming to YouTube very soon, and I'm hoping to be able to do some more shorts for YouTube and try and build up the channel on there. Yep. definitely. My dad paid for sponsorship of a horse sanctuary, and we went to see the horse today with my daughter, who thoroughly enjoyed herself. And the horse was called Teddy, and yeah, it's a nice place. It's the horse sanctuary. It's near High Wycombe, and they do a good job. I think they are purely funded as a charity. They don't get any government backing or any business like deals on there. And they look after old service horses from the police, the army, and I think they also look after like privately owned horses where where the owners had to pass or not being able to afford to keep them. So they do help out. It's good. And the horse was called Teddy. And it was nice because we go up there and they've got a plaque with all the sponsors on the stable doors. And unfortunately, they put it in my dad's name, but he's going to renew the sponsorship for my little girl. And so next year it should be her name in the stables, not my dad's. Yeah, I'm making progress with YouTube and obviously TikTok on here, and I had to go for a little bit of a break with all the social media because I started a new job 18 months ago, and now I'm in a position with the job I can tackle the social media again and try and climb that ladder. So yeah, if anyone's interested on TikTok, I have got a YouTube channel and it's called Sci-Fi Fans. Link is in the description in my bio. And likewise, if you're listening or watching to me on YouTube, then check out my TikTok channel. Thank you. Just a couple of more minutes and then I'll be coming off air and making myself a cup of tea before I go to bed. So if you've got any questions on either platform, then do ask away. And if they're sensible ones, I will answer them. So I'll leave it up to you. So what other films am I looking forward to? Well, let's have a look at what I've got to look forward to. What do I do? I am an assistant manager for a care home, Taylor and Max. Thank you. No, I'm not a washing machine. Not 2 bags. 2 bags. Oh, tea. I think you mean tea bags. This is tea bags. I like PG tips. At the moment, I'm using Aldi's decaf. I think as long as the bag has been left in the cup, then you can still get a decent cup of tea. The Expendables 4. That's going to be entertaining. Oh, wow. Right. So we've got Expendables 4 coming out at some point, and that's obviously going to be starring Sylvester Stallone, Jason Statham, Dolph Lundgren, Megan Fox, Tony J, Aiko Uellis, Andy Garcia, 50 Cent, yeah. Megan Fox. Now, her career kind of has been up and down, hasn't it? Because they kicked her off of Transformers, and then she's done Jennifer's Body. She's an actress that I wouldn't mind seeing more in films. What Marvel would I recommend? Yourself. Do it yourself. That's what I do. Make some ideas. Alright. Yeah, I think she kind of got a little bit of a raw deal in Hollywood. Obviously, we don't know all the details. They only tell you what they want you to know. But she's coming up in Expendables 4. I like the Expendables films. It's just a little bit of action. You don't have to think too long or hard about the plot. I think if you did, a bit like the Fast and Furious films, you'd probably end up with a bit of brain freeze. Because sometimes there is danger. You just got to do it. Right. Okay. Well, can you show us your shoes? If they're here, I can. No, they're in the other room. That's it for now. I'm going to end the broadcast, end the live. Before before I do, I'd just like to say there are so many ways that you can help support this channel that don't cost a penny. Like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching me on YouTube, same thing again, watch the videos, engage in the content, leave comments. Comments is one of the best things you can do for content creators because it then shows the algorithm that people are interested. And then it pushes your content even further, and we can build up a lovely community where we can just come here every week and discuss films and stuff. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you next week where I'll be going live again. Thank you very much, Bonnie, on TikTok. Definitely not allowed with me. Okay. Okay, is that you speak about yourself then, AD, yeah? Right. So, okay, I'm going to leave that.